As I mentioned earlier, we joked last week when Forrest was in. We said the prodigal host had returned, but the other prodigal host is back today. Todd Eccles.
It's good to be back. I don't usually leave my house. I usually don't leave the state. I don't like to leave my little area, but I was forced to, and I didn't enjoy it. But I'm back now, so
I'm like that. The only time I really like to go anywhere is to if I go take a picture of something, go see a waterfall or drive up and see some mountains. I went to a concert last year over at the casino in Nevada, and I got there and I thought, well, I've got 3 hours, so I took a 90-minute nap before the concert, and then I went to the concert, and so I got back to the hotel room and I was wide awake.
hmm
And so after I couldn't sleep at 12:30, I went down to the front desk and I checked out so I could go home.
yeah.
It's just
My wife gets fed up with me, and so do my kids, because I don't like to go do anything over spring break. We don't go on vacation, and if we go to Boise to visit family, I'm like, okay, let's go home. I'm done.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to stay over. I'm the guy. I'll drive clear to Boise if it's a 2-day affair, and I'll drive clear back that night so I can sleep in my own bed and then drive back up there the next morning. I don't like to leave. I don't like to go anywhere.
Well, that's so you can defend your home and hearth.
Well, there you go. I had to go to Arizona, and it was for my day job, and I wasn't unable to take a firearm with me. Flying on the planes, and besides, it's frowned on by the company. And so I'm up there, and we just kind of stayed at this hotel. We didn't go anywhere else. But I'm like, man, I got to defend myself with just my hands, maybe my ink pen. And I'm no good at that. I'm a lot better with a gun. So
Speaking of which, you've got a couple of classes on the way.
I do. I got two classes. I got them scheduled for April. One on April 8th, one on April 22nd. I've got people signed up for each class. For each date. So go ahead and call me. You can get a hold of me at area code 620-794-6223. You can call me there. You can text me. Find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Leave a message, leave a comment. Make sure you like the page. I'll get you in a class. I've been taking 2 or 3 calls every day, so I still have plenty of room though. So call me up. We'll get you in.
It's probably in two classes in 1 month keeps you busy, but I'm going to believe because the winter was harsh, a lot of people who wanted to take the course maybe postponed it. So you're going to have a pretty busy schedule through spring and summer.
I'm hoping so. Usually by about midsummer it slows down, which is fine. I mean, people are out camping and doing all kinds of stuff. And then come fair season, it really slows down because of the fair and 4-H and all that stuff going on and harvest. And then after harvest, it picks back up again, right through the middle of hunting season. Nonetheless.
I saw a couple of conflicting stories about firearms this week, and I wrote about one of them on our website. And one claim is that since the election, sales of firearms have tailed off and interest in actually owning firearms because there'd been some concern that if one candidate had won, we'd have a continued, attack on the Second Amendment. But because Mr. Trump won, that we're not seeing that yet. I wrote something up about that story. 2 days later, a guy at Fox said I looked over the numbers, and he said not true. He said people are still, and he broke this down. He said even in California, because they had new restrictions take effect January 1,
hmm
they had more firearms sold in California in the last 3 months last year than they've ever sold before. And then he said the minority community are buying more and more firearms because they realize they've got to defend themselves, and they often end up living in bad neighborhoods,
hmm
and so they're buying more and more firearms. So it increases the market for people who need training, if you will.
It does, and I've actually seen this year. I've had at least one, and I've got another interest in actually not just people calling up and saying, "Hey, I want to take a class." Me and my wife. I have a person get a hold of me and say, "Hey, look, the place where I work, we have a whole bunch of people, all like 20 people, 30 people. We all want to take a class together. Can you accommodate us? Can you come here and give the class? Can we come to your facility and give the class or take the class?" And that's awesome. I encourage that. Big groups of people are more fun, especially if they all know each other and they can joke and there's a little bit of competition. I won't say who called me recently, but I've got another one in the works. Hopefully they'll get a hold of me. But it's pretty neat deal. Just big groups instead of just single groups. And I encourage everyone to call me up if you got a big group you work with, your employer has a big group, whatever, whether or not you can carry there or not, or just a great big group of friends. Maybe it's something you do for your family reunion. Maybe all the families together and you all want to take a class. Um, Look me up. You got to get a hold of me. We can work something out. It's a lot of fun. I guarantee it.
Wanted to point out Todd Eccles is in studio with us this morning, and we're talking about firearms and firearms training. It's coming up on 9:12. Right now we have 43. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. If you've got a question or comment while Todd's in studio, telephone number 736-0300, 736-0300. And we've got to mention as well that your podcasts are up and airing.
Yeah, I've got my four. Well, let's see. Yeah, 4 episodes in, and they're short. They're not real long. I think the longest one's about 34 minutes. That's probably all anyone could take, just hearing me drone on and on. But they're pretty good. I haven't interviewed anyone yet. You can find me on iTunes under the Patriot Defense Podcast. I'm on SoundCloud under the Patriot Defense Podcast, and you can find my YouTube page under Patriot Defense, and I stick them up there as well. I also post links on my Facebook page whenever I have one that gets posted. Whenever it comes online, I'll put a link up there. I looked up how to create an actual app for my podcast, and I'm going to try to work on that this weekend. It's a lot of stuff on the computer, which sometimes takes me weeks to figure out. So I'm going to sit down this weekend, see if I can crank it out. And if I get that app all up and running, I will let everyone know.
You know, this app thing, I don't understand anything about it, but Mike Damer over in Jerome came up with a gaming app and within a matter of a few weeks became a millionaire. Uh,
Well, I'm not. I didn't create the app. It's part of this subscription thing for the people that host my bandwidth. If I pay a little extra, they actually. I don't know how customized it'll be, but it'll be just for Patriot Defense. I don't know what the app picture looks like or not, but it's made so you can download the app. It'll be free, and then whenever I post a show, it'll automatically go to the app and show up on your phone. So you don't have to dig through iTunes. It's just all right there. You just got to open it up and I think download it and hit play. I'm thinking that's how it works. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But if I could make millions off it, that'd be great. Maybe I should charge for it.
Buy your own radio station.
There.
Uh,
I don't know. I think I'd probably get a truckload of guns before I got a radio station.
you buy the Outdoor Network, although that's changed its name, hasn't it?
Uh, I don't know if it has or not. It may have.
One of them did, and it became something else, and they changed the nature of the programming. That happens a lot, which we don't want to do. I mean, we're happy with what we're doing here. We should point out too as well, if someone takes your course,
Mm-hmm.
Forrest was here last week. If they take your course, they may get a discount if they go to his shop.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I just mentioned it to you and then I forgot. But yeah, if anyone takes my class on one of those April dates, that'll be either April 8th or April 22nd. At the end of the class, I give you the paperwork you need for your enhanced concealed carry permit, and I also give you a certificate of completion. Forrest had an idea that anyone that takes classes on those two dates or in April and brings in a certificate dated for the date one of the classes in April, he'll give you 10% off any new or used gun at Washington Street Pawn. So, a little more incentive. Come take the class. Spend a little money, take the class, but then you can turn around, and that class will benefit you by helping you save a little money on your firearm purchase. So,
We wanted to point out once you get that certificate, what you go to the sheriff's department, right?
yeah, what you do is once you get the paperwork, essentially the paperwork I have is I have a certificate of completion that I created, and then I have part of your actual application that you need to fill out. And that part of it states me and my credentials, and I sign it, and it states the law enforcement officer who teaches part of it and his credentials, and he signs it. Then you download, either print the app off of the sheriff's department website, or you can pick one up at the DMV office and you fill it all out, add my sheet to it. That signifies that you're going to go get your enhanced permit. Then you read on the front of it. It'll have a number for Sergeant Doug Sugden, Staff Sergeant Doug Sugden.
Been a guest on the show.
Yeah, over at the DMV. You'll talk to him. He'll set up an appointment. You go see him. He'll take your prints. He'll talk to you a little bit. It's not really an interview. He just chats with you. Take your fingerprints. Make sure everything's signed. He'll send off for the background, and I think they have up to 90 days, is what he's going to tell you. Typically, it's I've heard from 2 to 4, 2 to 5 weeks. Just depends. Don't be calling him after 2 weeks saying Todd says my permit should be here, because he will call me and let me know. But they will call you as soon as they get your paperwork back. It's that simple.
There's still some discussion that's going on about a nationwide reciprocity. I have friends who are actually against that. They don't believe that the federal government should be involved in this, that it infringes upon the rights of states. But we here in the West, for the most part, we've got it now with a lot of neighboring states. But this certificate still is going to help you if you want to carry and go to Montana or Wyoming.
Yeah, this permit is, I'm gonna be wrong on this, and someone will probably end up correcting me. But if you go to the Idaho State Police website and go to the upper right-hand corner, there's a concealed carry, icon. Click on it, and it'll pull up a page, and it'll tell you every state that has reciprocity with Idaho on the enhanced concealed carry permit. And, you have to have that if you wanna be able to travel. So places like Nevada will allow us to carry in there with this enhanced permit. Places like Washington State will allow you to carry in there with this permit. If you're going through Oregon, forget about it. They don't do much with anybody. Um, you can get a I don't want to go into to details. There is a way you can get a non-resident Oregon concealed carry permit, but you got to know where to go, what county to go, what sheriff to talk to, because Idaho is a shell issue state. Oregon is a may issue state. So you could fill out all the paperwork and then you could go sit in front of the sheriff in Oregon and they may say, I'm not going to issue it to you. Where Idaho, if you've done everything you're supposed to do and you pass a background, they have to issue it to you. So Oregon's out of the question, but places like Montana and Wyoming and stuff like that, they will recognize this permit. So get online, go to the state police website and check it out, and it'll give you the full, complete list. It's always changing.
Some people get the permit, and I don't know exactly how this works. Somebody tried to explain it to me one time, and they may have been wrong as well. That if you get the permit and you'd like to drive to a state that has reciprocity, but you've got to go through a state that doesn't, you essentially have to dismantle it, and stick it in the trunk. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're close. You need to go to the Attorney General's website for that state that you're going to be either going to or passing through, and you need to find out. Every state's different as far as when you take a gun into the state. They will tell you what they expect, what they want you to do with that firearm. Sometimes it's okay if it's in your vehicle, you can keep it in your vehicle, but it's just got to be, open on the dash where people can see it. Some of them actually allow you to conceal it in your vehicle. You're fine. It's your car as long as it stays in your car. Some of them want you to unload it, lock parts up in the trunk, have these parts separated, front of the car, back of the car, not be within easy reach. Some of it they want it unloaded and put into like a box that you not lock but latch and then put out of reach like in the trunk. Every state differs and you have to know that they're not going to get you for ignorance of the law. You need to go to the Attorney General's website, check their question and answer section. They break it all down. You can call them, you can email them. And one more thing I want to throw out there is I don't travel much, but when I do and I have questions, I will send an email, and when they email me back an answer, I will print that off and say, okay, I'm going through this such and such state. I'll print that off and I'll just leave that in my car. So if I get pulled over or something happens, I can say, hey, look, I checked with your Attorney General's website. This is their email that they sent me. I don't know if that'll get you off the hook or not, but it's better than just me saying, well, I heard you could do this. So,
Yeah, I think that they're not going to listen to. I heard you could do it.
right.
My brother-in-law told me.
This guy on the street told me I could do this.
We've got more on the way with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense. On the way in just a few minutes. It's 43. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Todd Eccles joining us in studio this morning from Patriot Defense. It's 42. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. I want to point out something too as well. Todd and we haven't had anybody call with a question that's really stumped anybody yet. But if that happens, we'll find someone in the listening audience, I think, who will have an answer.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I'm not all knowing, so.
I try to pretend it, but it's true I'm not, and I've stumbled more often than I wish, and people can pretty much come to that conclusion.
My wife and daughters remind me I'm not all knowing every day.
That's what women in the family are great for.
Yeah.
923, and we have a caller with us. The number 736-0300. Caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX.
Safety thought. Years ago, I was an armed security guard at casinos at Lake Tahoe. One time I bought some 38 reloads and took them to practice with. I took aim, and the very first shot, there was a sizzle. The bullet never left the barrel, and if I would have been fast firing, the hammer could have come back and taken out my eye or part of my face.
Yeah, yeah. Was it a reload or was it factory rounds that you were shooting?
We've lost the call.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, and occasionally that happens. Even with a factory round, you get one that's not loaded correctly, loaded kind of light, and it'll make a different noise. The primer will go off, and it will expel the bullet, but it won't expel it out of the barrel. Okay, and it'll get stuck in there, and that's not a good thing. You always gotta, just something you gotta pay attention to. Bad things can happen if you've already got a round lodged in the barrel and you pull the trigger and it's able to let loose on another one. Years ago, I was deer hunting, and I was hunting with my 270, and it was actually when I first started hunting, and I was shooting my buddy's reloads. And this deer came out, came running out, and paused, and we all got some shots. And I'm new, so I got one shot off, and obviously missed. And I went to chamber another round as an old bolt action, and I couldn't get that second round to go in. And I kept jamming it in there, jamming it in there. And this was like 20 plus years ago. And I got frustrated and I quit. I quit. I was done. The deer ran away, and I went to my buddy, and he's like, "Why didn't you take another shot?" I was like, "I couldn't." And we got to looking, and that's what happened. He had one of his reloads. He didn't have enough powder in it, or something happened, and the bullet got expelled from the cartridge, but it didn't leave the gun. But it was jammed in the barrel, or right there, just far enough I couldn't seat my next round and pull the trigger. And I believe me, if I could have got that round in, I would have pulled that trigger. Just inexperience, I didn't understand, I didn't know. I'm really glad that it got stuck, so I couldn't get the next round chambered. But something we got to watch out for. I tell people in my class, when we're shooting in my class, if you pull the trigger on your firearm, on your handgun, and it sounds funny, or maybe the hole doesn't show up in the target, stop, raise your hand. I will come over. We will check it. I'd rather stop everyone from shooting and check that gun and be safe than have you go again and have bad things happen.
We have another caller with us. Caller, thanks for your patience. You're up next. You're on KLIX. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
you're on the air.
Yes, I'm want to ask a question about concealed carry. If you have your concealed carry permit, but it's not an enhanced, I got it before the enhanced regulation came up. Then when you go to renew that, do you need then to go through another series in order to get your enhanced?
When you go to read, if you want to move from a basic permit to the enhanced permit, you are going to have to take the state mandated 8-hour class. Now, they will just renew your basic permit, although I'm sure Sergeant Sugden will encourage you to get your enhanced permit. He does. But the decision is totally up to you. But if you do want the enhanced, you are going to actually have to take the 8-hour class. It requires that you fire 98 rounds, and you sit through some state mandated Idaho lethal force law training given to you by an Idaho law enforcement officer or attorney, but the officer has to be of intermediate post certification or higher.
Okay, but I can renew just my regular permit.
Yes, you can renew your basic permit. As far as I know, they're still out there. They're still valid. So,
Want to thank her for the call, and we have another caller joining us. It's 927. You're up next on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, you was talking about bullets a while ago. I had some factory Remington bullets, and I was younger back then, but I was deer hunting, shot at the deer, and the bullet did not go off. The friend was with me, said, take that bullet out, and the firing pin had hit the bullet, and we buried that bullet right there.
oh, it struck the primer and it never went off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll have, these things are all made in a factory and they're all made on machines. You got the primers are separate and then they put the primers in. So, stuff happens. You can get hard primers, you can get bad primers, that kind of thing. But yeah, you buried it and got rid of it. That's why when you're firing a handgun or even a rifle and you pull the trigger, you don't want to swing the gun around and point it at your buddy and say, "Man, this thing didn't go off," or turn it. Some people, I know it sounds ridiculous. Some people will turn it around and they will look down the barrel. You could actually have one that's slow to go off. Okay, a hang fire is what they call that. You don't want to do that. You want to keep that gun pointed downrange for 30 seconds, maybe even a minute. Then you can wait, and then you can unchamber and take a look at it. That's a good safety tip. I'm glad it turned out okay for you guys, and you're able to get that round out and dispose of it properly. So good thing.
We've got about a minute before the break. We have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Todd Eccles.
Yes, good morning. Just had a question regarding renewing your enhanced concealed carry. I've heard different ways. Do you need to take the training over again to renew, or can you just renew that?
I don't know if 100% for sure. The best person for you to call would be Staff Sergeant Doug Sugden in Twin Falls County. He's over at the DMV office. He is the guy that you have to go through to get your concealed carry permit in this county. At first for a while, I think I read that you didn't have to. That was my understanding. I don't think that's changed, but I could be wrong because when I started doing this and it came into play, no one's actually had to renew it. So or that I know of. So I've never come across this question before, but I think mine comes due like next year. So if you find out, let me know.
I want to thank you for the call, too, as well. We have a short break. We've got more coming up. Todd Eccles is joining us from Patriot Defense. What's the telephone number again?
Area code 620-794-6223. You can call me or you can shoot me a text message.
And we'll give that number out again in the next half hour. Give you an opportunity to jot that down. As I say, we're talking firearms today. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 45 already. Todd Eccles joining us in studio this morning from Patriot Defense. And we do want to mention, of course, a telephone number if you'd like to reach our show, 736-0300, 736-0300. We're at 43. Quick note, and I mentioned, I don't think about retirement at all, ever. It's just that I know I'm getting to a certain age where it will eventually come along. And I mentioned that you should have a plan in place. If you are looking for someone to help you with planning, I recommend Waddell and Reed right here in Twin Falls, located on Eastland Drive. This is a company that's been in business since 1937, one of the oldest firms in the country to offer mutual funds. In fact, Waddell and Reed owns and manages two mutual fund families, and they'll invest by a conservative nature. What they do is a planning approach, and they'll look at each piece of the puzzle and try to address your individual needs and goals. And Waddell and Reed will help build proper expectations and help people manage money. At Waddell and Reed, they'll take planning personally. Todd Eccles, I jotted down a quick note while we had some calls, and a caller spurred my thoughts on this. I'm a right-handed guy. My left hand, I don't even, I don't. It's just not my dominant hand, and I wouldn't try to pitch a baseball with it or any number of things like that. I can't write with my left hand. Well, I can, but you can't read it.
Right.
Although my teachers told me they couldn't read my right-handed cursive either. But if you have the time, would it be wise to train with both hands?
Yeah, it never hurts. I mean, if you ever have to use your firearm and you get shot in your right arm, so that'd be your strong arm, your gun arm, you get shot in that hand or something happens, it's really nice to be able to know how to do it and be proficient with it with your left hand. Um, if you are really into concealed carry and you carry your gun every single day and you're right-handed, what if you're out playing soccer with the kids and you fall and break your arm? How and you still want to carry that firearm? It's going to be real hard to do if you got that right arm in a cast. Yeah, I encourage everyone learn how to use your left hand. Learn how to shoot with your left hand, and you may not. You can get really proficient with it. The more and more you practice, you may not ever be as good as you are with your right hand, but you can get it under control and figure it out. And that's not a bad idea to think about gear too. You're going to need a left-handed holster if you're going to do that. Whenever I go to the range, I'll shoot, using both hands. I'll shoot right-handed. I'll shoot left-handed. I'm a lot better with my right hand, obviously, but it's kind of fun. People, when I have my classes, I have them shoot 7 rounds with their left hand or with their weak hand. If they're left hand, they got to shoot their right hand. If they're right hand, they got to shoot their left hand, type of thing. And people actually do better with their weak hand than what they think because they are trying harder. They're focusing more, and it's really amazing to see. I saw one guy almost all his shots were touching. He's like, "Oh, I don't know how I did that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't either. Look at your right hand. You look what you did with your right hand. They're separate." I was like, "You were concentrating." And some people are scared to do it, but you should try it.
I have a lazy eye on my right side, even though I'm right-handed. And I was out shooting with Forrest one day, and I said, "Wait a minute!" And I flipped over to my left hand, and
hmm
wouldn't you know it, I started hitting the target much more often.
Oh yeah, and people do because you concentrate harder. Another thing people should work on, and it's not something you're just going to go out and do and be fantastic at it. Shooting with both eyes open. It's kind of an eye muscle thing, and so when you're holding your firearm out there and you're looking at the sights with both eyes open, you actually will kind of see a couple different sights and pictures, and you'll have to kind of like bring them together. And I can actually shoot more accurately that way and quicker. Even if I have to go at it and kind of close my eye just for a second, just to kind of help bring everything into focus and open both eyes, and then I'm on it, and I can actually shoot more accurately that way. It takes a little while. The first time I tried to do it, it took me about a month or so to get it, and if you spent a lot of time doing it, you'll actually end up with headaches after a while. But you're just training those muscles, training those eyes to do what you need to do.
Of course, the old television westerns, they always had a a sidearm on each side,
Yeah.
and so in fact you'd see them draw both out, and they wouldn't aim. Of course, they never even sight it in. They just sort of shoot, from.
That's another style of shooting completely. That they actually have what they call point shooting or instinctive shooting. And what it is your body, will naturally line up with things. If I'm sitting here and I'm pointing at that picture across the room, and I sight down my arm, I will know that my finger is in line with it. Do the same thing with my left hand; it's aligned with it. Put a gun in my hand; it's aligned with it. Now this isn't for bullseye shooting. This is for hitting center mass. Okay, it's not for trying to win some bullseye championship. You're probably not going to be able to do that. It's for plunking steel. It's for hitting center mass. And the way that came about over time was, and I forget exactly where it was. This is the story I read when I was reading the history of this. Law enforcement officers they noticed were shooting when they were shooting the bad guys. They're actually hitting the guys in the hand and the arm, and they were trying to figure out why. They were so focused on that threat. That was the threat. The gun was in the hand. The knife was in the hand. Those hands were a threat. So that's what they were focusing on. So when they were pulling the trigger, obviously, in 2 and 3 seconds time, you don't have time to sit there and line the sights up exactly and get the perfect stance. They were focusing on what they needed to do, and that's where they were shooting. And that's where instinctive or sight shooting came on. That's when they brought in center of mass. Focus on that. You're good to go.
Hold still, offender, while I take aim.
That's right. I got it. What did Todd teach me in class? How's that stance go?
We've got more on the way. Todd Eccles joining us from Patriot Defense. In fact, we'll have more contact information if you have an interest in getting that permit. That's on the way in just a few minutes. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 45 at 9:40. Our studio guest joining us, Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense. And we do want to point out he's got a couple of classes coming up in April, the 8th.
The 8th and the 22nd.
Those are Saturdays. And for people who'd like to get in touch with you, maybe give the number out a couple of times so they can write it down.
Sure. You can call me or text me, area code 620-794-6223. Once again, that's 620-794-6223. Call me, text me there. Find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Like the page if you want. Shoot me a message. You can shoot me an email at patriotdefense13@yahoo.com. And if you're on my Facebook page, look for my podcast, click on it, download it, share it with your friends, listen to it. If you don't like it, let me know too. It is what it is. I got thick skin. I just want some kind of feedback on this. Hopefully, they'll just get better and better. So
We need to point out, though, that you have a history as a broadcaster long before you started doing this show and started doing podcasts.
I do, but the podcasts are still a little rough. I posted a picture on Facebook. I'm wanting to get some better soundproofing and stuff, and life got in the way, and I want to build a little corner in my what I call my war room, my reloading room, and turn it into like this little sound studio type thing. But right now, Brad gave me some old I don't know sound panels that he had made, and I stacked them on my table like a little cave, and I shoved my head in there so it sounds good. I posted a picture on it. They're pretty comical. Nice 70s color, orange and blue. It's fantastic.
Kind of like the Broncos, Boise State Broncos.
Yeah, but these are like really light. These are horrific.
Well, we've got a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Some years back, a friend of mine who was an ex-officer and trained the SWAT teams and the FBI and so forth back in Washington came out, and he had a car arms knocked down 380 because he was wanting to give me a personal weapon that would be easy for me to carry. Now that I'm older and my hands aren't as good. And I really was quite proficient because I always was a good hunter, a good shooter. But at even 15 to 20 yards with that knockdown, I could group, within 2 inches of that center of that target. Now, is there any reason why I need a different model, or is that knockdown going to be all right for me to carry?
If you're proficient with it and you can shoot with it, which it sounds to me like you are, carry what you're proficient with. Carry what you're good at. I'd hate to tell you to go get something else. It's all about getting shots on target and being as accurate as you can with it. And it sounds like even at that distance, you are plenty accurate. I would just encourage you to keep that and keep using it as long as you're happy with it.
Okay, because it's light enough to go with arthritis and MS. I have
Sure.
some problems, so it's working good. But okay, that helps me. Thank you.
Yep.
Speaking of which, you know, we were talking off air about certain firearms are a little too big for some people. We were talking off air about 1911s, which is beautiful looking firearm,
Oh yeah,
but not
pretty.
right for everybody.
Right.
What do people carry? What are they comfortable carrying? We're a little curious about that this morning. If you want to share with us your thoughts on what you carry,
Yeah.
give us a call.
Yeah, give us a call. I'll share. I'll be the first one to share. Right now, I got a lot of different handguns. Right now, the one I've been carrying for the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years is my HK VP9. I carry it. I carry. You don't have to tell me where you carry yours, but I carry mine appendix carry in an incog holster, or I carry it in a crossbreed super tuck, right at about 3:30, 4 o'clock on my right side. I've lost a lot of weight, just trying to get healthier. It was a little easier to carry when I was a little thicker because there's this bone right there that it rubs on my hip bone, so I had to move it back just a little bit. But that's what I carry. My favorite part of class is actually seeing what everyone brings in to shoot. I take a minute and I always walk down the table when all the guns are laying out there, and the shooters are right there, and make sure everyone knows how their gun functions. And more or less, I'm just kind of looking at them too because I just like to look at guns. I like to know what people carry. There's all different firearms out there, so
It's like looking at cars. It's just cool to
exactly.
look at all the models.
Exactly, and you can match a gun up with its owner typically by looking at him. The persona kind of goes back and forth. So, I look at some guy who's got a cowboy hat on. He's probably going to have not all the time. He's probably going to have a revolver, and then the guy that maybe shoots competition because his gun will has competition written all over it as far as the mods he's done to it. And it's fun to do. I just like to know what people carry.
We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Todd Eccles on KLIX.
Yeah, Todd, I hope this is something you can answer. It's off the subject, maybe, but I've just always wanted to call in and ask this question. There's an association called Concealed Carry Association, and there was a time when we lived in Jerome, out north of Jerome, and the sheriff says, if you have a trespasser on your property, Bob, and it seems very serious, he says, you're better off dropping him. And that's the way it was back when I was a boy. Things were matter of fact, and the sheriff says, this guy's breaking the rules, and it sounds very, very, I don't know how to term it, but nowadays the rules of engagement in your home when you have somebody breaking into your home, and I've asked the sheriff now, not Jerome sheriff, different sheriff, and I said, what should I do? And he goes, well, you better not do anything. You better call us. And I says, well, what happens if he's armed and he's threatening to do, harm? And here I'm standing there just without anything. And it becomes so gray that I worry about what kind of a situation could happen. So if my life is in danger, how do I prove it? I mean, what kind of a situation? How does this work? Because, he's in my property, he's in my house. My attitude is, my God, my instincts is to stop him, however the hell it is. I'll hang up.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Back in the good old days, I guess some people were okay with if they're on your property. As far as being on your property, unless if someone's stealing your car, if someone's trying to take off with your dog, if someone's stealing something off your property, you can go and confront them. You couldn't necessarily shoot them, obviously, and take care of the problem and leave them lay. You cannot defend your property in the state of Idaho, as far as I know. That's not what I've been taught. That's not what I've read. As far as in your house, okay, if you can prove anywhere that, or even, I guess, even on your property, if you can prove that they were a threat to you, you were scared, you thought that you were scared for your life, you can defend yourself. You just have to be able to prove that you can defend yourself. Now, people, they're probably thinking, well, how am I going to do that? Well, every situation is going to be different. Okay. At my house, if someone's banging on my door, I'm going to call law enforcement regardless if I get the chance. Okay. I'm going to call them, and then I'm going to handle it if I need to. They're beating on my door trying to get in. I do have a door separating me and them. I'll call law enforcement, let them know what's going on. But my line in the sand is you come inside my house. I don't know what you're there for. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I deem you a threat automatically. I have a wife. I have kids there. If I have to defend myself and them, I will do that. I've made that decision now. It's something you've got to decide now. You can't shoot someone if you wake up and hear someone in your house and you go downstairs and they're taking off with your TV, or they see you coming down the hallway and they turn around and run out the front door. Let them go. You're done. Call the police. Stand there. Have your gun ready. Be armed in case they come back. Call the law enforcement. Let them know what's going on. There is kind of a gray area. You just have to be able to legitimately explain why you were in fear for your life, why they were a threat. So, and I'm not encouraging someone just to go shoot someone and then make up some story about why they thought they were a threat. If they're not in my house and everyone is in my house and they're outside, in my eyes, they're not a threat right then and there. Am I going to go outside and confront them? Probably not. Okay, I'm going to call law enforcement and let them handle it. That's If something happens to me, then who's going to protect my wife and my kids? I'm going to stay with them and protect them when the problem comes to me. And I've actually went over that in one of my podcasts, my last podcast. You can take a listen to it if you want, and we talk all about that.
I saw a story the other day. I think that even in some of the most blue states, we're seeing a change where people are starting to recognize a criminal often deserves what they get. There was a story, some people came out of a Denny's, four of them in California a few days ago. Some people may have seen some of the video already on TV. They got in their car and a guy showed up pointing a gun at them and he robbed the four. And he had a couple of his crewmates in a getaway car a short distance away. He turned around to go to the getaway car, and these people just decided we're going to get as far away now as we can from him. They put their car into reverse. However, somehow he'd managed to get tangled up in their car and they dragged him backwards. The robber, they dragged him
Wow.
backwards. So his crewmates took off when they saw that he wasn't going to be with them. They got nervous, they panicked, left him behind. So the car stopped backing up. He turned around to try to run again, but he pulled out a gun thinking, I'm going to shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
He pulled his gun back out. They went forward, and when they did, they hit him, and as he flew up into the air, he shot himself in his face with his
Oh,
pistol.
wow.
The sheriff said he's not going to be charging the four people for running this guy down.
Well, yeah, and that's a pretty complicated little story there as far as in a situation. My thoughts are is I don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't there. They were You made it sound like they had gotten into their car when someone. If you're in your car, start that thing up and drive away.
Yeah,
And then if he pulls a gun out and he's in front of your car, run him over. You're sitting in a 3,000-pound weapon.
yeah.
So, but it's kind of funny. He got in the way. They went to leave. That's a good story. I like that.
Crime does not pay, obviously.
No.
We have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
When I was in Fort Ord in 1959, we were out on the firing range, firing for our score. One of the guys had an M1. It's a 30-06, and he was firing and he applied immediate action. He fired a shot and it didn't eject the shell. And so he applied immediate action and put another bullet in and fired again. And the bullet that he had fired before was in the barrel, and it split the barrel wide open and wrapped it right around his neck and burned him a little bit. And so all the people that had high scores were sent out to the range the next day to fire all the rest of that ammunition that was in that set.
Yeah, you got to be careful, as we talked about earlier. Bad things can happen there, especially in a rifle, a high powered rifle like that. You've got there's a lot of force. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of force leaving there. And if it can't leave by expelling the bullet and having it go out the barrel, it's going to go out the sides. It's going to split that barrel. It's going to bust that action. It's going to bloody hands. It's going to blind people. So you got to be real careful, real conscious of what you're doing.
We had a neighbor when I was a kid named Mr. Curtin, and I don't know what exactly he was doing, whether he was repacking or he was just making his own bullets.
Mm-hmm.
But he would have duds, and that he knew weren't going to work well, and he'd give them to me. The promise being that I wouldn't put them in any firearms.
Right.
So I had a collection of these bullets, some of which the actual you'd look at it, the bullet on the end might be malformed, or
Mhm.
just he wasn't happy with the shell. So I had these things for years that I kept in drawers as souvenirs. Probably wasn't good to have them around the
You
house.
know, eh, just sitting in a drawer of souvenirs, it's not going to probably hurt anything. It's the fact that someone might say, "Oh, hey, look. Oh, he's got some ammo. Oh, I've got a 38. I'm going to fire this 38," not knowing exactly what's wrong with it. Is there not enough powder? Is there too much powder? I mean, that's the scary part. At the very least, I try to encourage people, if you reload and you have a bad bullet, just pull them apart. Okay, pull them apart. Um, don't I was gonna say, hey, if you're gonna keep them for some reason, souvenir, some, paint them orange or something. But you know what? Just pull them apart. Don't even paint them orange. Just pull them apart. It's better safe than sorry.
He'd take a look at them. I'd be standing there, and he'd take a look at them, and if he wasn't happy with it, he'd hand it to me.
Uh, that was a long time ago, though, wasn't it?
That's sometime back in the early 1970s.
So there you go. Maybe it was a different world then.
Yeah, far different world.
Yeah.
But I was allowed to keep them at home. My parents didn't have a problem with them, but it wasn't like I sat them out and said, "Here we go. Here's my collection of."
Well,
I put them in a drawer, and that's where they stayed for years.
I've also heard of people saying, "Hey, look, I've got this." They did it with a shotgun, I think, and they put it in a vise, and they were just kids. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but they were just kids. They put this shotgun shell in a vise, and they took a nail and a hammer, and bad things happen. So,
Putting them on railroad tracks, not a good idea as
yeah,
well.
yeah, all kinds of bad things can happen. But hey, while we're chatting here, I will state I picked up 2 new guns on Monday. I got an M&P 2.0 in 9 mil. Haven't shot it yet. It's still in the box. And before someone calls in and tells on me a little bit, I'm a big 9 millimeter guy. I've got pretty much all 9 millimeters. I picked up the Shield and I picked it up in 45. So I'm really anxious to see how that shoots. I'm not necessarily a 45 guy. I don't mind 45. It's just cheaper to shoot my 9. But I figure if I've got to go small, I might as well go big. So we'll see what happens.
I was going to say, the idea of having some options is always a good thing.
It is. It is, and I'm getting more and more options. In fact, I got about 4 or 5 more options that I'm hoping to purchase later on this year. So
I
we'll
have a
see what
friend
happens.
listening today who was explaining to me a few weeks ago that if you go to his house, you would find he's got backups in his freezer, in
Yeah,
his refrigerator. He's got them in boxes that don't look like they're holding anything else. He's got them behind clocks and portraits, so he's ready if he ever has
he's
a.
ready. Well, see, last year I bought my kids. I didn't buy anything for me. I think I bought my wife a handgun. I bought 2 shotguns, a couple rifles. I didn't. I didn't get anything this year. It's the year of Todd. Okay, I'm
Yes,
making
the
up for
year
it.
of
I'm
Todd.
making up for it.
We've got to look. If you didn't get through today, we'll do this again next week.
Yep.
Todd Eccles joining us in studio from Patriot Defense. The news is coming up next at 10 o'clock from Fox. Also, Rush Limbaugh following news. 1 o'clock this afternoon, Sean Hannity after news. After the news at 4 o'clock today, it's Glenn Beck, Dave Ramsey tonight from 7 until 10 o'clock. And God willing, the creek don't rise. That'll allow me to come back and do this all over again on Monday morning between 8 and 10 o'clock.